The warning lights had never turned that shade of red before. Rilla pressed her thin fingers against the console, her large eyes reflecting the emergency colors that now painted the entire communications hub. She had worked at the Velani research station for 6 cycles, and in all that time, the worst emergency had been a minor air leak in the botanical section. This was different. This was the kind of red that meant death was coming. "How long do we have?" Commander Yedris asked, his voice steady despite the fear Rilla could smell coming off his pale blue skin. 6 hours, maybe less, Rilla replied. "The asteroid field changed course after the collision. Our shields cannot handle debris of this size." The Marathi were not a species built for crisis. They had evolved on a gentle world with soft winds and calm seas. Their bones were hollow, their bodies light, their entire civilization designed around avoiding conflict and danger. The research station was their pride, a place of learning and discovery floating peacefully in the void. Now it was a death trap. Yedris moved to the main display, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. 2,000 souls lived on this station. Scientists, engineers, families, children. The evacuation shuttles could save perhaps 300. He had already done the math. He had already felt his hearts break. "Send the distress signal," he ordered. "All frequencies, every relay within range." Rilla's fingers flew across the controls. The signal burst outward at the speed of light, a cry for help in the endless dark. She watched the transmission logs scroll past, noting which relays picked up the signal and passed it along. Then she saw something strange. "Commander, there is a relay at the edge of the system I have never noticed before." Yedris turned. "Where does it connect?" Rilla checked the database. Her blood ran cold. "Sector Gamma 7, it is marked as unexplored territory." She paused, reading the warning attached to the entry. "Class 12 Deathworld territory, no contact recommended." The words hung in the air between them. Every species in the galaxy knew about Deathworlds. Planets where gravity crushed bones, where the atmosphere burned lungs, where predators hunted with terrible intelligence. Most civilizations avoided these hellish places. The few species that evolved on such worlds were considered dangerous, unpredictable, barely civilized. "Send it," Yedris said quietly. "Commander, the warnings." "What is the worst that could happen?" Yedris asked, and there was no humor in his voice. "We are already dead. If something out there can help us, I will take that chance. Send it." Rilla sent the signal. For several minutes, nothing happened. The debris field continued its approach, a wall of rock and ice that would tear through the station like claws through silk. Rilla began composing messages for her family, words she would never get to send. Then her console chirped. She stared at the incoming transmission. It was crude by galactic standards, using electromagnetic waves rather than quantum-linked communication. The signal was strong, aggressive, pushing through interference that would have stopped more sophisticated systems. "This is the heavy cruiser Adamant," a voice said. The accent was strange, the pronunciation slightly off, but the words were clear trade common. "We have received your distress beacon. State the nature of your emergency and hold position. Repeat, hold position. Help is coming." Rilla could not speak. She turned to Yedris, who looked equally stunned. "Respond," he whispered. "This is Velani Research Station," Rilla managed. "We have 2,000 civilians facing collision with a debris field in approximately 6 hours. Our shields and vessels are insufficient for evacuation or defense. Please, if you can help us." "Understood, Velani," the voice cut in. It belonged to someone who sounded almost bored, as if rescuing doomed stations was merely another item on a routine checklist. "We are 4 hours out at maximum burn. Sit tight and do not panic. The Adamant is on the way." The channel went quiet. Rilla immediately searched the galactic database for any ship named Adamant. The search took only seconds. A single result appeared, and Rilla felt her throat tighten as she read. The Adamant was registered to a species called humans. She clicked on the species file. There was almost nothing there. Humans had only recently made contact with the wider galaxy, and information about them was scarce. But there was one note, added by a galactic survey team that had observed their home planet from orbit. Earth, Class 12 Deathworld. Dominant species displays extreme aggression, pack-bonding behavior, and persistence hunting traits. Approach with extreme caution. Rilla looked at Yedris. He had read the same file. "What have we done?" she whispered. Yedris was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened his spine and lifted his head. "We have called for help," he said. "And something answered. Whatever these humans are, they are coming to save us. I choose to believe that means something." Rilla wished she shared his confidence. She looked back at her console, at the signal still pulsing from somewhere in the dark, and wondered what kind of creature lived on a world that tried to kill you every single day. In 4 hours, she would find out. The debris field grew closer. The station waited, and somewhere in the void, something massive and deadly was racing toward them, carrying hope or destruction. Rilla could not tell which. Not yet. The child would not stop crying. Her mother held her close in the central hub, whispering soft words that did nothing to calm the terror that had spread through the station like a disease. Around them, hundreds of Marathi huddled together, their thin bodies pressed against one another for comfort that none of them truly felt. Rilla stood at the observation window, watching the debris field grow larger with each passing minute. 2 hours remained. The human ship had promised to arrive in 4, but that had been 2 hours ago. Either they would come soon, or they would arrive too late to do anything but collect the wreckage. "Contact," someone shouted from the sensor station. "Faster-than-light signature at the edge of the system." Every eye in the hub turned to the main display. Rilla had spent her career studying ships. She knew the elegant curves of Velani cruisers, the geometric precision of Corthan freighters, the organic shapes of Delmary vessels. She had never seen anything like what emerged from the light. The adamant did not look like a ship. It looked like a weapon someone had decided to make mobile. The hull was angular and harsh, covered in thick plates of armor that bore the scars of countless battles. Weapon arrays bristled from every surface, tubes and barrels and emitters that promised destruction on a scale Rilla could not comprehend. The ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the largest vessel in the Marathi fleet. And it was accelerating directly toward them. "By the ancestors," Yedris breathed, "what have we invited into our home?" The communication console crackled. "Velani Station, this is Captain Dara Walsh of the Adamant. We have visual on your debris field. Looks like you have." "Quite the problem there." Her voice was calm, not the forced calm of someone hiding fear, but the genuine calm of someone who had seen worse and survived. Rilla found it more unsettling than the ship itself. "Captain Walsh," Yedris responded, "we are grateful for your response. What is your plan?" "Simple enough," Walsh said. "We are going to fly into that debris field and break it apart before it reaches you. My weapons officer is already calculating firing solutions. Should be a fun afternoon." Rilla exchanged a look with Yedris. Fun. The human had called their impending extinction fun. "Captain, the debris field contains thousands of objects," Rilla said. "Some are as large as small ships. Your vessel, impressive as it is, cannot possibly." "With respect, Miss Rilla, you have never seen what a human warship can do," Walsh interrupted. There was something in her voice now, something that sounded almost like amusement. "We were built for this. Literally, every system on this ship was designed to break things and survive the consequences. Trust me." Trust, the word felt strange applied to a species the galaxy had warned against contacting. On the main display, the Adamant continued its approach. The ship moved with surprising grace for its size, adjusting course with small bursts from maneuvering thrusters. Rilla noticed that it was positioning itself between the station and the debris field, placing its own hull in the path of destruction. "They are shielding us," she realized aloud. "Humans are pack bonders," Yedris said quietly. "I read it in their file. They form emotional attachments quickly and will defend those attachments with their lives. We called for help. In their minds, we are now part of their pack. Rilla was not sure if that was comforting or terrifying. The adamant reached its position, hovering like a predator waiting to strike. Through the communication channel, Rilla could hear activity on the human bridge. Voices called out coordinates and power levels, the crew working together with a precision that seemed almost mechanical. "All stations report ready," a male voice announced. "Weapons hot," another voice confirmed. "Navigation locked," said a third. Then Walsh spoke again, and her voice carried a weight that made Rilla's hollow bones tremble. "Vellani Station, I recommend you close your external blast shields and reduce power to non-essential sensors. What happens next is going to be bright." The shields descended, metal plates covering the observation windows. The hub fell into emergency lighting, red and dim. Rilla kept one screen active, showing a sensor feed of the space ahead. "Adamant beginning engagement," Walsh announced. "Sit tight, little ones, we have done this before." Little ones, the words should have been insulting, but somehow they were not. They sounded protective, almost gentle. The screen flashed white. Rilla heard the distant thunder of weapons firing through the vacuum, vibrations traveling through the station's hull. The sensor readings went wild, registering energy outputs that exceeded anything in the Marathi database. Explosions bloomed in the darkness, rock and ice shattering into fragments, fragments becoming dust, dust becoming nothing. The adamant was tearing the debris field apart. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, hundreds of humans were working together, fighting against the forces of nature itself, risking their lives for strangers they had never met. Rilla did not understand it, but she was beginning to hope. The battle had begun. Weapons Officer Bryn had not slept in 36 hours, and she did not care. Her fingers moved across the targeting console with practiced ease, each motion sending another volley of death into the debris field. The railguns hummed beneath her feet, electromagnetic coils accelerating tungsten slugs to speeds that turned rock into vapor. The missile bays emptied and refilled in steady rhythm. The main cannon charged and fired, a heartbeat of destruction. This was what she had trained for. This was why she had joined the fleet. "Target cluster alpha neutralized," she announced, moving to beta. Captain Walsh stood at the center of the bridge, watching the tactical display with sharp eyes. "Navigation, adjust heading 2 degrees starboard. I want better angles on those larger fragments." "Adjusting now," Pell replied from the navigation station. His hands guided the ship with gentle precision, dancing the massive vessel through a storm of rock and fire. Through the forward view screen, the debris field looked like the end of the world. Thousands of objects tumbled through space, some small as fists, others large as buildings. The adamant moved among them like a predator, destroying everything in its path. Bryn allowed herself a small smile. The Marathi had doubted them. She had heard it in there. Voices, the disbelief that any ship could stop what was coming. They did not understand what humans were capable of. They were learning. "New contact," the sensor officer called out. Large mass signature emerging from the far side of the field. It must have been hidden behind the other debris. Walsh turned. "How large?" "Approximately 900 meters across. Irregular shape. It is moving fast, Captain. Trajectory puts it on a direct collision course with the station." The bridge fell silent. Bryn ran the calculations in her head. The fragment was too big to destroy quickly. Their weapons could break it apart, but not fast enough. By the time they reduced it to safe sizes, it would already be through them. "Time to impact?" Walsh asked. 12 minutes. Walsh nodded slowly. She walked to the navigation station and placed her hand on Pell's shoulder. "How fast can we intercept?" Pell looked up at her. Understanding passed between them without words. "If we burn hard, we can reach it in 8 minutes, but Captain, at that speed." "I know," Walsh said. She turned to face her crew, and her voice carried across the bridge like a flag in the wind. "All hands, this is the captain. We have a big rock heading for those people we promised to save. Our guns cannot stop it in time, so we are going to stop it ourselves. Brace for collision. This is going to hurt. No one argued. No one hesitated. Bryn felt pride swell in her chest as she locked down her station and gripped the safety handles. The adamant surged forward. Acceleration pressed Bryn into her seat. The engines roared with power they were never meant to sustain. On the view screen, the massive fragment grew larger, a mountain of ice and stone tumbling through the void. "Impact in 60 seconds, Pell announced. "All hands brace," Walsh commanded. Bryn closed her eyes and thought of the Morathi, those small and fragile people huddled in their station, waiting to die. She thought of the children she had heard crying in the background of the communications. She thought of her own daughter, back on Earth, who would grow up in a galaxy where her mother had made a difference. It was a good thought to hold. The adamant struck the asteroid. The noise was beyond description. Metal screamed as the reinforced bow crumpled inward. Bulkheads buckled. Atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches. Bryn was thrown against her restraints, feeling ribs crack against the pressure. But the ship held, and the asteroid shattered. Bryn opened her eyes to see fragments spinning away in all directions, none of them large enough to threaten the station. The collision had done what their weapons could not. The mountain was now 1,000 pebbles, and the Morathi were safe. "Damage report," Walsh said. Her voice was steady, though blood ran from a cut on her forehead. "Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, someone answered. "Engineering reports reactor containment is stable, weapons systems offline, navigation is sluggish but functional." Walsh nodded. "Begin damage control, get our people patched up." She activated the communication channel. "Velani Station, this is Adamant. Debris field neutralized. We are going to need a few minutes to patch some holes. Hope you do not mind the delay." Through the damaged hull, Bryn could see the station in the distance, intact and safe. She smiled through the pain in her chest. This was why she had joined the fleet. This was what humans did. The airlock hissed open, and the monsters walked in. That was how Rilla had imagined this moment. Terrifying creatures from a death world, covered in scars and violence, bringing fear wherever they went. The galaxy had warned them about humans. The database had called them dangerous. The galaxy had been wrong. Captain Dara Walsh stepped onto the station with careful movements, her boots barely making sound against the metal floor. She was tall by Morathi standards, with brown skin and dark hair pulled back from her face. Her uniform was torn in places, stained with something that might have been blood, but her eyes were warm as she looked around at the crowd gathered to meet her. "Permission to come aboard?" she asked, and there was a gentleness in her voice that made Rilla's throat tight. Commander Yedris stepped forward. "Permission granted, Captain. You and your crew are welcome on Velani Station." More humans followed Walsh through the airlock. Some carried tools and equipment, already moving toward damaged sections of the station to help with repairs. Others bore injuries of their own, but insisted on working anyway. Rilla watched a human woman with a bandaged arm climb a ladder to fix a broken light panel, refusing assistance with a smile. "Your people are hurt," Rilla said to Walsh. "They should rest." Walsh shrugged. "Humans do not rest well when there is work to be done, besides. Helping others helps us heal, strange but true." Rilla did not understand, but she was beginning to accept that there was much about humans she would never understand. The station's medical bay became a place of confusion and wonder. Morathi doctors examined human patients and discovered bodies that seemed designed for survival. Dense bones that could withstand impacts that would kill a Morathi. Immune systems that fought off infection with aggressive efficiency. Skin that healed at remarkable speed. "Your bodies are weapons," the chief medical officer said in amazement. Chief Engineer Moss, who was having a broken finger set, laughed at that. "Our bodies are tools. We use them to protect the people we care about. That is the only thing that matters." In the main hub, Walsh sat with Yedris and Rilla, sharing a meal of simple station rations. The humans ate everything offered to them without complaint, praising flavors that most species found bland. "We are not picky eaters," Walsh explained. "On Earth, you eat what you can find. It makes you grateful for anything." "Earth sounds like a terrible place," Rilla said. "It is beautiful," Walsh replied, and her voice held a love that surprised Rilla. "The oceans are so blue they make you cry. The mountains touch the clouds. The forests are filled with life. Yes, everything there can kill you, but that is what makes it precious. We fight to protect our home because we know how easily it could be lost." Rilla thought about that. The Marathi had evolved on a gentle world, and perhaps because of that, they had never learned to fight for anything. They avoided conflict, chose peace, built their civilization on cooperation and calm. But here were humans forged in fire and blood who had learned something different. They had learned that some things were worth fighting for. "Why did you come?" Rilla asked finally. "You did not know us. We could have been anyone. Why risk your lives for strangers?" Walsh set down her food and looked at Rilla with those warm, strange eyes. "Because you needed help. That is reason enough." "But the cost?" "The cost is always worth it," Walsh said firmly. "On Earth, we have a saying, no one gets left behind. It does not matter if you are human or Marathi or anything else. If you are in trouble and we can help, we will. That is what it means to be human." Rilla felt something shift inside her, some belief she had held about the universe. Quietly falling away. The galaxy had told her that Deathworlders were monsters. The galaxy had told her to avoid them at all costs. But here was a woman who had rammed her ship into an asteroid to save strangers, and she spoke of love and protection as if they were the most natural things in the world. Perhaps the galaxy was wrong about many things. A small sound made them all turn. A Marathi child had approached the table, holding something in her tiny hands. She looked up at Walsh with large, curious eyes and held out her offering, a small crystal that glowed with soft inner light. "For you," the child said. "Thank you for saving us." Walsh's face changed. The captain of the Adamant, the woman who had faced death without flinching, suddenly looked like she might cry. She knelt down slowly, bringing herself to the child's level, and accepted the gift with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "I will treasure this forever." The child smiled and ran back to her mother. Walsh stood, still holding the crystal, and Rilla saw something she would remember for the rest of her life. A Deathworlder, gentle and kind, fighting back tears over a gift from a child she had nearly died to save. These were not monsters. These were protectors, and Rilla was honored to know them. 3 days passed like a dream Rilla did not want to wake from. Human engineers worked alongside Marathi technicians, sharing knowledge and laughter in equal measure. The language barrier dissolved as hands and tools found common purpose. A human would show a Marathi how to weld damaged hull plating. A Marathi would teach a human the delicate art of calibrating sensor arrays. By the end of the first day, they were eating meals together. By the end of the second, they were telling stories. Rilla learned that humans had music, and that it made them cry. She learned that they kept small animals as companions and called them family. She learned that they dreamed of the stars not because they wanted to conquer them, but because they wanted to see what wonders existed beyond their small blue world. Everything she had believed about Deathworlders was wrong. On the morning of the third day, the Adamant was ready to depart. Her hull still bore the scars of the collision, but she was spaceworthy again, patched together by two species working as one. The crew gathered at the main airlock, preparing to say goodbye. Commander Yedris stood before Captain Walsh, holding a small medallion in his upper hands. It was old, passed down through generations of station commanders, a symbol of the highest honor the Marathi could bestow. "Captain Walsh," he said formally, "on behalf of everyone on Velani Station, I name you friend of the station. You and your crew will always be welcome here. Our home is your home, now and forever." Walsh accepted the medallion with visible emotion. Her jaw tightened, and her eyes grew bright with moisture she refused to let fall. "I do not have words for this. Thank you, all of you." The humans exchanged gifts with their new friends. Star charts passed from Marathi hands to human ones, showing routes through friendly space. Emergency beacon frequencies were shared, with Walsh personally explaining how to reach human territory if trouble ever came again. "Do not hesitate to call," she said. "Day or night, whatever time it is, wherever we are, if you need us, we will come." Rilla caught Walsh alone near the airlock, wanting to ask one final question. The captain looked tired but content, the crystal from the child still hanging around her neck. "Captain, when you flew into the debris field, were you afraid?" Walsh smiled softly. "Terrified, every single one of us was terrified. But you did it anyway." "That is what courage is," Walsh said. "Not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. We were scared, we did it anyway. That is the human way." Rilla hesitated before asking her next question. "The database said your ship was returning from a memorial service when you received our signal. What happened?" The smile faded from Walsh's face. She looked out the observation window at her ship, scarred and beautiful, and her voice grew quiet. 6 months ago, we responded to another distress call. A colony ship had lost power near a black hole. We got most of them out, but the gravity was too strong. We lost 7 crew members pulling the last survivors free." She paused. "We were on our way back from honoring their memory when we heard you." Rilla felt her heart's ache. "And you still came. After losing so much, you still came." "Because they would have wanted us to," Walsh said simply. "Because giving up would make their sacrifice meaningless. We save others because that is who we are. Not because it is safe, but because it is right." The boarding call sounded. Walsh straightened her uniform and offered Rilla a human gesture. An extended hand? Rilla had learned this was called a handshake, a sign of friendship and respect. She took the hand in her own, feeling the warmth of human skin, the strength that could crush but chose instead to comfort. "Take care of yourself, Rilla," Walsh said. "And remember, you are not alone in this galaxy, not anymore." The humans boarded their ship, the airlock sealed. The adamant disconnected from the station and began its slow journey toward the edge of the system. Rilla watched until the ship was nothing but a small light among the stars. Months later, the story had spread across the sector. Marathi traders told anyone who would listen about the Deathworlders who came to save them, the terrifying ship that placed itself between innocent lives and certain death, the humans who bled for strangers and asked nothing in return. Other species began to question what they had been told about humans. Some reached out, curious, others remained cautious. But the fear was changing, slowly transforming into something that might one day become trust. Rilla was at her communications station when the next signal came. Not a distress call this time, but a request for docking permission. A human trading vessel wanted to visit, to establish the first formal trade route between their peoples. She opened the channel with a smile. "Human vessel, this is Velani Station. You are cleared for approach. Welcome back." Through the view screen, she watched the ship draw closer, its hull painted with a name she did not recognize. But on the side, someone had added a small symbol, a Marathi crystal glowing bright against the metal. They remembered, and Rilla knew that if danger ever came again, she would not hesitate to send a signal into the dark, because somewhere out there, the Deathworlders were waiting. Not as monsters, but as friends.